Yo, what's up everyone? So I'm gonna show you how to make a virtual reality first-person shooter game, and there's about 4 or 5 different chunks or steps that you want to take to do that, to be able to achieve that, especially from a learning perspective. So yeah, step one will be, and I'll try to break these down into individual videos. So step one is going to be how to integrate Google Cardboard's VR SDK. The reason I do that is so then you don't have to figure out how to code and make all the background architecture to get VR to work. So there is a few steps we need to do once we've got Google's VR SDK and added it into our engine, which will use Unity as our coding engine. Then we want to make a basic environment, not any high-end art. We'll just make some things within Unity. So we'll make a floor, some walls, a door, and we'll get that door to start to animate using something called lerping, which is linear interpolation. So that's just animating some objects from point A to point B, straight line to straight line. And we'll start looking into custom methods. So this is custom chunks of code which you can then call in later. And then we will look into movement and shooting. So we are a game player and we want to move and jump. So when we get to that stage, I'll decide how we do that. Probably will be something like this, which is looking down to move or look down to move forward, because if we're in Google Cardboard, we only have one button. We don't want to waste that button on moving. Maybe we do, but one trick is if you look down with your head, and you can emulate that on your keyboard, or you can just move your phone down if you don't want to put the headset on. Then the player will move. So that's one way around it. We'll look into teleporting. Portals are quite cool for games. And shooting bullets. And shooting bullets is where it starts to get nice and interesting, because we're instantiating. So we are creating clones of one object. You can shoot 100 bullets, and you're just cloning the same one object 100 times. And then we'll look into, starts to get a bit more complex, enemies. So we'll make a spawning auto-generating system. So enemies will, they'll just keep spawning, maybe make it appear around the user in a circle. So we'll have to cover a bit of trigonometry for that. Killing, so killing would be killing enemies, getting killed yourself. Maybe if it's easy to explain, maybe we'll cover a health system. So that's damage to the player yourself. Maybe you don't want to die after one hit. You probably want to decrement your health, and then you've got damage to enemies. Either we'll make them die after one hit, or maybe allow them to have multiple hits. And then we'll do a basic UI and game mechanics that might be covered within all the other videos, or maybe I'll make a separate video for that. So a game timer, this could be counting up or counting down, the health system, which we've already talked about, and a restarting system for when the game is over. So yeah, the next step is download. Go to this URL. I'll put a link in the video, in the GitHub. I'll put all the files and codes we do into GitHub. I'll put a link of that in GitHub too, and I'll even put the SDK myself on my own website in case it ever gets taken down from here, because this has been archived. It means Google want you to use their newer version. I personally don't recommend using a newer version, especially from a learning perspective, because the newer the Google VR SDKs, the more long and complicated it's got for us to use, meaning they keep taking features out, basic things, which means we have to code these basic pieces of architecture and infrastructure ourselves, which is just a waste of time. So I personally use this version, which is v1.200.1. So yeah, download that. It's 33 meg. And once you downloaded that, open up Unity Hub. Use this version maximum, which says 2019.4.32 F1. You will basically see all this stuff as I'm making it anyway, and I'll put it in the README in GitHub and some links on my website and YouTube. So yeah, just name it whatever you want. And make sure it's in the folder you want, 3D obviously, and create. Might take like a few minutes for Unity to make this file. Cool, and you can see my version up there in the top right. So yeah, my game, or my whole setup, Windows setup, is like, it's a bit different to most people's. You can set up however you want, but long story short, this is the scene area where I can start to, you know, look around, make things. This bottom one is the game window, so what you would actually see when you play, or when you've actually exported a real game. I've also got it up there. I've got my hierarchy here, which shows me what's in my scene. And I've got my project window here, which shows me my assets and things like that. And my console here, where I can see warnings, error messages, that sort of stuff, and the inspector here. So first things first, once you've downloaded that VR SDK, that 33 megabyte thing, you want to drag it into the project window. You could get it in from GitHub, but this is just much easier. So these are all the files, you know, there's prefabs, there's assets, loads of codes that Google have, you know, put a lot of hard work into making and giving us for free. So yeah, dump that in the project window. Just keep pressing OK if you get asked things. And yep, it's in there. Then you want to change some settings to make things work. So if we go back to this Miro board, we want to switch to Android. We want to disable some Unity project settings. We want to add some Google VR prefabs to the scene or to the hierarchy. I think that's how you spell it. And then we want to test some Raycast Physics to make sure it's working. So we're only focusing on this pink block right now. So we go to build settings, switch to Android. And still doing it. Then hit player settings, and what you want to do is you want to change this company name. It may seem like a basic thing, but if you just do it now, it will just stop errors. You see, like it will inject it into package name. It will potentially stop errors coming down on later down the line when you want to actually export this so it could work on your phone and things like that. When you go to graphics, even though Vulkan is sick, just take it off basically, because Google Cardboard VR, especially the version we're using, is a bit old. So you can leave that OpenGL thing, or what is it? Yeah, OpenGL, leave that one, just get rid of Vulkan. And because we press remove, it's doing this whole loading bar thing. Then keep scrolling down, and here, minimum API level, it needs to be API 19, which is Google 4.4 KitKat, if anyone remembers Google KitKat. Has to be that at minimum, and target, go for the highest installed. So yeah, luckily I didn't have to mess with that, but you may have to, depends on how old your Unity version is, you may have to set this to 4.4 as your minimum, API 19 basically. Keep scrolling down, and then you get to this XR settings. I think XR like means mixed reality or something like that. Tick virtual reality supported. Then you click this plus on your right, click cardboard, and it should import a few things. And that's good for now. Then just to make our lives easier for later, hit tags in layers. And well, you don't have to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to then dump this window here because I want to be adding some tags in layers later. So at least I've got easy access to it. Okay, but we're still not done. So if you were to load up one of these Google demo scenes that they've given us, it will probably throw up loads of errors and just not work. What we then need to do, this camera is going to, let's rename it to VR underscore player. Let's tell it to reset its position to 0, 0, 0. And let's create another game object. This is one of the things, the workarounds you've got to do to get Google Cardboard working properly. Let's reset, let's make this, we've made this, let me just show you again. Let's create an empty, which is basically means it's just a nothing, it's like a placeholder. Call it player, drag the VR player inside there. And then we're going to type in, we'll go into Google VR, but we're going to type in GVR, and we're going to filter by prefabs. We are after this reticle pointer. We're going to drag it into the VR player. You'll see the reason for that later. And then we're going to add a component here. We're going to type in GVRP. And we're after the GVR pointer physics raycaster, not the graphics raycaster, the physics raycaster. Okay, we're almost there. Then we're gonna, let's just focus on our player there. Then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make another empty. We're gonna call it, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm gonna call it Google underscore VR underscore objects. Now, you know, how did I get to this thing? Even I'm in all assets, but I'm going to click in the Google VR, and then I'm going to click GVR, and then I'm going to filter by this button here, filter by prefabs. Now you could just type the, you know, close to the full name of this thing. We need to put the editor emulator. So now this is going to let us simulate VR, and it will do loads of other things. So GVR editor emulator, I'm going to get this GVR editor, what is this? GVR event system. And I think that is it from memory. Let's check the mirror board. So we switched to Android, we disabled some project settings, we've added Google VR prefabs to the hierarchy. So I think that's it. And now, if we were to play, let's see what type of errors we get. I think they just look normal. So now if I press Alt, I can move around. If you look at the bottom left window, if I'm pressing Alt, I can move. It's like I'm in, this is what would be in VR. And if I press Control, I can spin. When you export, you'd actually get two of these game windows, and one's for the left, one's for the right. And they basically merge together when you look into it. So we want to basically see, can we actually visualize things? So if we move the Y height to like 1.7, that's about the height of an average tall person, 1.7 meters, for example. And in this hierarchy now, let's just make a 3D object a cube. And look, it's popped up in the bottom. So if we start moving it around, let's see, what way is the player's looking that way. Okay, so what we want to do right now is we just want to be able to test some raycasting. It's like a laser, physics laser that the camera throws out, just to make sure the Google VR is working properly. So even we can make this cube a bit less of a cube, a bit bigger. Let's like rotate it. Cool. Now if we press play, we've got something to look at. Okay. So what we're going to call this cube, let's call it enemy. Okay. Enemy, and actually let's reset the rotation, bugging me a bit. And let's make another one. Let's do Control D or Command D. Let's make another one called friend. Let's move it there. So we've got enemy and friend, and obviously they both look the same. So let's add some materials, some paint for them. So we're gonna, first of all, we're gonna create a folder, and this folder is going to be called what we're going to call this thing. Can't call it Google VR. We're just going to call it demo game. So this is whatever we do, we're going to try to put it into demo game. You know, it's good to have a bit of OCD and keep things organized. So we'll make one folder called materials. That's where we make the paint. We'll make another folder called scripts, where we will dump our codes into. And we'll make another folder called prefabs. These are like these cube type objects that we want to reuse it in other places. So we'll go into materials, we'll make create material, enemy material, and then we'll make one called, you guessed it, friend material, and enemy red. So let's find enemy there, get this enemy there, and you can drag it there, you could just drag it there, or you could drag it there, or you could drag it there. So I'm just gonna dump it there. The enemy's gone red. Let's find the friend material, make the friend like green, and then just drag friend into there. Okay, so now we still are not able to know, you know, via an input-output way, what are we actually looking at? So we can see it, but nothing's really going on. So one way, actually we need to test first that the raycasting is working, which is quite essential for VR. So we're going to create a new script, and let's try to call it VR. If I get rid of the underscore, it doesn't matter what these names are, just easier to remember. The thing with coding is if you get one character wrong, it just doesn't work. So in the scripts folder, but you can put it into any folder. I just like to keep it organized. I right-clicked, I clicked create C#, and then when the script was generating, I called it VR player. So what I want to do now is I want to drag this VR player into this VR object, this VR player there, just to refresh. This VR player is our camera that came with Unity. We've just added a child object of the GVR reticle pointer to it, and we've added Google VR's physics script basically to it. So anyway, just drag this VR script that we've just made, double click it, And we have now opened up we have now opened up that script. That script is attached to this VR player. We could attach it to anything. So whatever we write here, it could or it will control that, or it will have an impact on that game object. So we just want to test if the raycasting is working. So to do that, you call the raycast, no, not that. Start again. Raycast hit. Look for that one. That's the method. And we're going to have a variable, a local variable called hit. So let me comment this. Let's use tabs. If you've seen Silicon Valley, it's good to use tabs. This is a local raycast, which is like a laser. I'll explain what it is. Variable, and the result will be stored in hit. Okay, so what we've done in the update, which we'll cover in other tutorials, this update method is basically a loop that Unity have created, something that will run once per frame. So if you've got 60 frames per second, I think it's going to run like 3,600 times a minute. It's just going to keep running. It's not like the start method, which is traditional coding, which just runs top down once. So yeah, what we've done is we've called this Unity Engine's raycast method, which is a structure used to get information back from a raycast, and we're saving it in this variable called hit. So whatever the laser raycast hits, it's going to save in hit. If, for those of you who know programming, if statement, if you do your regular brackets and then you do these curly brackets. So inside here, you're going to write your question, and inside these brackets, you're going to write your solution or your action. That's basically how if statements work. So if physics dot raycast, then you've got to do some more brackets. Then you've got to put the parameters inside here, yeah? So if physics.raycast, now if you hover over this, first of all, this is telling it's a boolean. It's a yes or no, a true or false. It's saying if the physics and raycast has done its thing, then it wants you to say the origin. Where is this laser? And I'll show you what the laser means. Where is this laser raycast originating from? In what direction is it going? And then I believe we're going to be using one of those 15 overloads. So we want this laser to fire out from the camera, or the raycast, I was calling it laser. We want it to fire out from the position of the VR camera, and then we want it to fire out forward. What forward means is, let's hover over forward. Return the normalized vector, blah, 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 representing the blue axis. So let's go here. Look at that blue axis. And now look at this Z position here where my mouse is, yeah? When I move that blue, see? And what it's actually doing is it's doing 0, 0, 1 when you're saying transform.forward. So it's going to be wherever this camera is, it's going to fire a laser forward. So in one way to explain it is if I make a cube inside that camera, and I think I'll rotate it that way a bit. Wherever the camera is, it's just going to keep firing these lasers out, and whenever that laser hits something, we can then do something from there. So let's make sure I didn't mess anything up. Okay, let's get back to our code. So we said raycast hit. So we've called Unity's raycast hit method. We've said save whatever happens in this hit variable, and we're saying if physics.raycast, and make that raycast start from the current position of the camera, because we are in that VR player, which is a camera. Always keep projecting that laser forward, and save is out hit, I think it is. and save the result in this out hit. And then from here, we can basically use the console by saying debug.log and figure out what have we hit. So we can say you have hit, but it's not going to give us anything meaningful if there's no errors in this code. These are just some standard Google VR SDK type things. Errors. Okay, so now if I hit something, let's clear those errors. It's saying you have hit, but it ain't telling me what I've hit, but you can see it's, if I uncollapse it, it'll be low. So look, it's not doing anything now. Until I get over this green friend, it's going to increase. When I get over this red enemy, it's going to increase. So now it knows the laser, the Raycast is hitting something. So let's go back. You have hit plus, out of the quote marks, hit, which is this variable, this blue variable, dot transform dot name. Now what this, as you've guessed, is going to do, oh, I'm still in play mode. What it's going to do, it's going to go to the transform and give us the name. So now it's going to say you have hit and show us the name. So let's play. We're in the console. As we move, so I'm using Alt so I can emulate header movement. You have hit enemy. You have hit friend. You can also do some other cool things. So you could also say stuff like hit, but okay, now we know it's working. So Google Cardboard VR is integrated and set up. If I do hit dot trans, no, in fact, let's do destroy. And then inside this bracket, so let's do hit dot transform dot game object. I think this will work. So what this is going to say, destroy is something that Unity have, they've done all the hard work. You can probably read like all their code when you click that. It removes a game object, component, or an asset. So what we're telling it to do is destroy something, but then the problem with coding is you've got to kind of keep overemphasizing and telling it what to destroy. So you're going to tell it whatever the laser, wherever the Raycast has hit, its transform component of its game object. So anyway, let's see if it works. So whatever I look at, it's going to destroy it. Good, that's destroyed. So it shows that we hit it once, but then it destroyed it straight away. And let's do the same thing here. Boom. Problem is, this is whatever we've made right now is like a deadly weapon, because anything it looks at, it will just destroy. But yeah, that is how to set up Google VR SDK. And the next tutorial will start to cover, let's get to it, the environment. Cool.